up, Tzu Chi volunteers offer their support and assistance for the TransAsia plane crash in Taiwan. Tzu Chi volunteers in Malaysia hold cash card distributions for flood survivors in Pahang. Welcome to DaAi Headlines. I'm Mary Lee. Thank you for joining us. We start today's show in Taiwan. On February 4th, TransAsia Airways flight GE235 was en route from Taipei to Jinmen when it crashed at 10:56 a.m. local time, just minutes after it took off. 85 people were on board, with most of them being tourists from China. So far, 15 people have been rescued and taken to 8 local hospitals. Tzu Chi volunteers also mobilized to offer support and assistance at the hospitals. And later, we joined the volunteers in Xiamen, China, as they accompanied relatives of the Chinese passengers on board to Taiwan.
TransAsia Airways flight GE235 had just taken off from Taipei's Songshan Airport and was heading to the Jinmen Islands before flight controllers in Taipei lost contact with the plane just minutes later. At 10:56 a.m., the plane carrying 58 passengers and crew crashed into the Geelong River. Dashcam footage of the plane showed the aircraft banking sharply at 90 degrees, hitting a taxi and clipping a bridge before hitting the river. Survivors pulled from the wreckage were taken to 8 local hospitals for treatment. Tzu Chi volunteers arrived shortly after to accompany stricken family members and offer their assistance in whichever way possible.
The moment I arrived, I immediately went to locate the hospital volunteers to find out how we could assist them. The 2 deceased passengers were placed in the prayer rooms on the 5th floor of the basement. Our volunteers are all on standby to offer support to the family members.
By noon, some 30 volunteers had already arrived at Cathay General Hospital in Xizhi. Later in the afternoon, volunteers were requested by the hospital to hold a prayer service for each of the deceased.
We immediately headed downstairs as soon as we received notice.
Upon learning that injured passengers at the hospital were in need of a change of dry and clean clothes, volunteers from the nearby Shoufeng recycling station hurried to see what they could gather at their second-hand shop.
We prepared fresh sets of clothing for about 20 to 30 people.
Volunteers prepared warm clothes for adults to children.
There are cotton shirts, hooded tops, etc. for men and women. We chose the better ones.
The second-hand clothing from the recycling station were all carefully selected and thoroughly cleaned before being offered to the patients. Volunteers hope that this small gesture can bring some comfort to the victims. Meanwhile, in Xiamen, this trip to Taiwan is made with a heavy heart. At the airport are anxious family members worried sick about their loved one's fate. This promise to comfort and support continued from Xiamen to Taiwan. This is the scene at the waiting area at the Jinmen Airport.
My daughter is in Taipei and she saw the news of the plane crash on TV. Her brother was one of the passengers on board the flight. Although he sustained head injuries, he is okay. We have been trying to get a hold of them. Thank goodness for that. We are so relieved he is okay.
Hands tightly locked together, volunteers are doing their utmost to provide these family members with a sense of comfort and safety, as well as the courage to face what lies ahead.
TransAsia Airways flight GE235 from Taipei to Jinmen crashed into the Geelong River 4 minutes after taking off on Wednesday morning. Tzu Chi volunteers from Nangang, Neihu, and Xizhi immediately mobilized to help support the emergency workers with the rescue efforts. Here is our report.
This Wednesday afternoon, the kitchen at Tzu Chi Neihu ground is already full of volunteers working together.
After arriving here at about 10 this morning, we then heard about the airplane crash. Actually, people called me to tell me about it. Though we immediately mobilized, we couldn't get into the crash site. We first immediately delivered blankets, and now we are making instant rice and hot soup for them.
TransAsia Airways flight GE235 heading to Dimeng crashed into Keelung River 4 minutes after taking off from Taipei. On the shores, volunteers from Nangang, Neihu, and Shiji have established service stations.
We're supplying the rescue workers with hot meals. We have prepared ginger tea and steamed buns. We have also brought 400 lunch boxes, and we'll have 1,000 more tonight.
Thanks to nourishment brought by the volunteers, rescue workers who hadn't had anything to eat for hours can finally rest and warm up.
We have prepared 2 generators to light up the tent area. Later, our utility volunteers will come help with the wiring and set up, so that the rescue work can continue easier at night.
As night comes, the rescue effort continues. Tzu Chi volunteers will continue to man the service stations and replenish supplies until the rescue efforts are completed.
The pilots flying the ill-fated TransAsia Airways plane came from an economically struggling family in central Taiwan. Growing up in Nantou, Liao Jianzong was a filial son who would help his parents with their night market booth. In school, Liao was not an outstanding student. However, in order to fulfill his dream of being a pilot, he worked hard to learn English. Liao was really the quintessential country boy living the big city dream. Sadly, he did not survive the crash, with his body recovered in the early morning hours on the 5th.
Liao Jianzong, who piloted the TransAsia Airways airplane that crashed into the Keelung River in Taipei, worked hard to get to where he was.
I've heard his father say that he was worried about his safety because they are at risk of being a pilot. Of course, parents are always worried about their kids.
Liao grew up in Nantou City. His family didn't have much money, but always made sure he and his brother had food to eat.
When they were younger, the parents sold clothes at the farmer's market. They have a booth at the night market, and one in the morning too.
Once Liao became a pilot, he didn't forget to reciprocate his parents' love and efforts. In the eyes of his old neighbors, he was a good son.
Just recently, he sent his parents on a vacation. He often comes back to visit the family when he's off from work. He's very good to his parents.
Upon hearing news of the plane crash on the 4th, Liao's family immediately headed to Taipei to be with their son.
This is the 4th year that the Tzu Chi Foundation has held winter aid distributions in Guangxi Province. The distribution venues this year took place in Wuming County. And although Wuming County isn't too far off from Nanning City, the province's capital, many of the residents living in this area, regardless, get by on government subsidies. Thus, besides holding distributions, volunteers also visited a few care recipients to get a better understanding of their living conditions. Let's take a look.
Here in Guangxi Province, a song and dance helps to break the ice between Tzu Chi and care recipients at the first ever winter aid distribution in Wuming County's Xianhu.
Since 1991, the Tzu Chi Foundation has helped impoverished residents along the Yangtze River by giving them food to eat and clothes to wear.
Ready to begin, volunteers put on their yellow vests. Some hand out snacks, while others hot tea. These heartwarming gestures tend to the care recipients' immediate needs. Volunteers helping out at the distribution event come from all walks of life, as each put down their pride and serve the less fortunate.
We need to leave our comfort zone to see the difficulties out there. This way, we can value those around us and our belongings.
The first is to know your blessings. The second is to use your ability to give back to society to help those who are in need. Not only adults, but young students also volunteer their time.
At the end of the distribution, Tzu Chi volunteers switched to home visitations with local county officials. This is 80-year-old Su Jiaru, who suffers from mental disabilities. Seeing visitors at his door, he happily brings out relief items to share. Many of the houses in this area are made from mud, typical of a farming community. However, homes like these crumble easily with time and use.
The government will give you money to help rebuild your home, perhaps 20 to 30,000 per household. Those with the ability will rebuild. Those without the means will just continue to live in their original home.
Next, volunteers visit Pan Jian'an's home. The 60-some-year-old senior had 2 sons. One passed away, the other is divorced. Pan has vision and hearing problems and currently receives government subsidies to get by. As the two part ways, Pan and his little dog see off the volunteers. Looking back, it seems Pan is already counting down till the next time they meet. One and a half months after widespread monsoon floods swamped areas on Malaysia's eastern shore, Tzu Chi volunteers have continued to put the needs and well-being of residents first and foremost. With the recent series of Tzu Chi cash card distributions taking place across the eastern states. Next, we join volunteers in Jernatat village in Pahang as they provide monetary assistance to 581 families.
Inside the Sungai Chinese School Hall in Pahang, residents are immersed in warmth and hope with the arrival of Tzu Chi volunteers. Helping local residents recover from the floods will be Tzu Chi's monetary assistance in the form of cash cards and aid.
Today we are distributing cash cards to 581 households. It is the monetary equivalent to 645,900 ringgits.
Who knows what tomorrow will hold or when impermanence will strike? But just like the Jingsi aphorism found on the distribution form says, residents know they need to overcome these trials to rise above adversity.
We shouldn't sit back quietly. We should accept our struggles and overcome them.
Tzu Chi's cash cards warmed the hearts of residents.
I was really comforted to receive this cash card. This monetary support will significantly reduce the burden of all flood victims.
The
power of love and compassion never ceases. There is no doubt about it. If there was no love in the world, there would be no peace to speak of. Seeing all the good Tzu Chi has done for Jernatat villagers, I'm truly grateful.
Donating their spare change to help those who suffer the same plight, residents are ensuring that this love never runs dry.
This is nothing, just a small contribution to help those who are facing more difficult battles.
Tzu Chi's cycle of love will continue to spread across Pahang State as volunteers will return soon to conduct large-scale distributions to help communities recover from the disaster.
Tzu Chi's efforts to build prefabs for those left homeless by the massive flooding on Malaysia's east coast last month continue. In Kuala Lumpur, 30 Malaysian Tzu Chi volunteers practiced assembling 2 prefabs under the watchful eye of 4 of their counterparts from Taiwan. The volunteers hope that, with such practice, they will be ready to bring the prefabs to where they are needed at a moment's notice. 30 volunteers are here today at the Kuala Lumpur Jingsi Hall to learn how to assemble a prefab home.
Right now, volunteers from Kuala Lumpur and Selangor branch are conducting surveys in various disaster areas. Next, we will talk with local governments to see what they require. If they request it, we will then travel to the area to instruct locals on how to assemble the prefabs.
In less than 9 hours, the 30 volunteers assembled one 20 square meter and one 26 square meter prefab. Overseeing the process with a professional eye were 4 Tzu Chi engineers sent especially from Taiwan.
Today I'm here to observe and learn as much as I can. Honestly, although they are called prefabs, there's a lot of assembly to do and many details to be aware of. So we are thankful for our Tzu Chi brothers from Taiwan for their efforts in guiding us through the process. Now, if we go into the disaster zones to help build these prefabs, we will know where and how to start. I've lived in Malaysia for over a decade, and I never thought I would see it go through such a disaster. Just now, while working on the prefab, I hoped I could get the process done as quickly as possible, so we can get these prefabs to people who really need them.
On the same day, a congressman from the state of Kelantan visited to get a first-hand look at the prefabs and to discuss with Tzu Chi its role in the upcoming reconstruction of the disaster areas. On February 4th, a Tzu Chi volunteer certification ceremony was held at the birthplace of the Buddhist NGO, the Jingse Abode in Hualien, Taiwan. The occasion was joined by more than 400 trainees from Malaysia, Singapore, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, Canada, and the United States.
2 years ago, I made a vow to come to Hualien to meet the master, but I was afraid of flying. Today, I have finally conquered my fear of heights.
Having to overcome her fear of heights to receive her Tzu Chi commissioner name tag from Master Zheng Yan is Chen Shouxiang. Chen had a difficult childhood, being born without a tongue. However, life's challenges didn't stop there. After giving birth, Chen discovered that she had colorectal and breast cancer. It has been more than a decade since the South Asian tsunami. Today, the first group of local volunteers from Sri Lanka is becoming certified Tzu Chi volunteers.
At the moment, we have only a few number of volunteers and members, around 260. You may think, why 10 years? So this year, in 2015, after we have become commissioners, I make a vow, we make 1,000 volunteers and 1,000 members at the end of this 2015.
Tzu Chi volunteers in Malaysia also share how the Buddhist NGO's efforts in assisting victims of the recent flooding has united all citizens in donating their love.
I want to thank Master Zheng Yan for her compassion. The Master helped us launch Cash for Work programs in Malaysia for the very first time. A religious teacher told us that the same blood runs in everyone and that we are all brothers and sisters. The teacher asked me what he can do to help. So I told him he can start by practicing recycling. He promised to do so in his school.
Staff members of Tzu Chi's 4 missions put on a stage adaptation of the Great White Ox Cart to encourage newly certified volunteers to boldly shoulder the NGO's missions.
期盼的每一位呢，就如我一颗很饱满的种子啊，那深深的要注入了你们的心田里，期待大家要记得此刻师父对大家的期待，也希望人人不要忘掉呢这个时候的这一份发大心、立大愿，要成为人间菩萨。
By lighting the lamp which represents wisdom and hope, newly certified Tzu Chi volunteers also vowed to recruit more like-minded people to join them on the Bodhisattva path.
Besides enjoying Chinese medicinal soups and meals to strengthen their body, Taiwanese also love taking various kinds of vitamins and health supplements. In fact, Taiwanese spend about $2.7 billion a year on vitamins. But really, is this the proper way to good health and longevity? We find out in our report.
Inside these colorful bottles are various pills of all colors and sizes. There are different types of health supplements and vitamins, which Taiwanese enjoy taking and giving away as presents during holidays.
老人牙齿不好，有时候
Old people tend to have bad teeth and can't eat a lot, so we take these to supplement our health. Hi, can you please help me with something? As you know, young people nowadays just love playing their smartphones, so I'm looking for lutein-related products.
我有在补充B群跟
I take B complex and amino acids. I take B vitamins because I'm constantly worn out from work. They can help strengthen my metabolism.
Though vitamins are considered a type of health food, do people really need to eat them? And if they do, just what should they eat? Such questions need to be answered by professionals instead of people self-medicating.
Just why exactly do you need these health supplements, and what are you taking them for? Second, how are you taking them? Third, do you take them before or after meals? Health supplements might interact with the medication you are already taking and cause a reaction.
Most middle-aged people, and especially seniors, will often take calcium supplements. But are they getting just exactly what their body needs?
像有些人就说关节
Some people might be taking calcium supplements because they have joint problems, but that would be a mistake. For joints, they should take glucosamine. However, if you have osteoporosis, then you should take calcium. People often get these two mixed up.
People should avoid eating spinach when taking calcium supplements, as the oxalate in the spinach will prevent the human body from properly absorbing the calcium and instead form calcium oxalate stones. Also, vitamin C should not be eaten together with foods that contain copper, such as grains, soybeans, mushrooms, and chocolate, as the copper will oxidize the vitamin C. Doctors say vitamins may help regulate our metabolism, but if we take too much of a certain type, they will accumulate in our liver and cause health problems.
B1 and B2 each have their specific function, such as strengthening our nerve signals. People with bad breath or a quick temper can take B2. For those women who get dizzy easily, they can take B6. Otherwise, a healthy person really don't need all these supplements.
疾病的预防啊，就是你
There are 3 ways to stay healthy and keep illness at bay. The first is eat nutritiously, which you do by keeping a balanced diet. The second is maintenance, which means to exercise moderately regularly. The third is self-cultivation, which is about stress management and controlling your temper.
Rather than taking vitamins that might burden our body, it is better to eat sensibly and exercise regularly. Only by helping our body absorb the nutrients from the food we eat and staying fit can we really be healthy.
In Taiwan, the Tzu Chi Central Grounds kitchen was bustling with activities early morning on February 5th as volunteers began to prepare meals to feed those family members of deceased passengers aboard the TransAsia flight and volunteers who were looking after them at the Taipei City Mortuary Services Office, second funeral parlor. We will leave you with these images at the end of the show. Thank you for watching our broadcast. See you next time.